The first time Commander Efrix witnessed Nathaniel Boone drink the brew, he assumed the human was attempting a primitive form of self-harm. It was aboard the interstellar research vessel Viridian Light, docked quietly in low orbit above Earth, where the Galactic Council had sent a delegation to monitor humanity's integration into interspecies diplomacy. The humans, for their part, had sent Nathaniel civilian liaison, former botanist, and, as he claimed, unofficial ambassador of breakfast. Efrix was tall, pale-skinned, with a translucent ridge cresting his skull. His people, the Kellerans, prized efficiency, clarity, and equilibrium. Substances that altered perception were banned throughout their systems. So when Nathaniel pulled a battered metal thermos from his pack and unscrewed the lid, Efrix paid close attention, assuming it was a nutrient beverage. A cloud of bitter, acrid vapor wafted across the observation deck. "What is that chemical?" Efrix asked, his voice strained from the unfamiliar stench. Nathaniel smiled over the rim of the thermos. "Coffee. More specifically, red point black. Brewed it myself." Efrix took a cautious step back. "Is it weaponized?" Nathaniel snorted. "Only if you try to drink 3 cups in under 5 minutes, which I don't recommend unless you enjoy existential panic and heart palpitations." Efrix's translator paused just a beat too long. "You ingest this?" "Willingly." Nathaniel took a long sip, winced, and muttered, "Still too hot." The translator beeped twice as Efrix tried to process. "What is the purpose?" "To wake up," Nathaniel said. "Well, to push through fatigue, really. Been up since 4 prepping for the council briefing. This stuff keeps the lights on upstairs." Efrix blinked. "You override your neurological fatigue cycles with this?" "Yeah," Nathaniel said, tightening the thermos lid. "Humans do what we gotta do." Word of the incident spread through the Viridian Light's decks faster than Efrix expected. Within 1 rotational cycle, 3 other delegates had requested a sample of Earth's stimulant liquid. Protocol required a full analysis before any consumption, so the lab team sequestered Nathaniel's remaining brew and ran it through the ship's biochemical scanner. The results were inconclusive. The caffeine compound defied simple synthesis. Combined with the natural oils, acids, and volatile aromatics from the roasted beans, the substance could not be fully replicated using the ship's food synthesizers. It also triggered an anomalous spike in neuron activity in test cultures. The council's xenomedical officer, Dr. Viral, summoned Nathaniel for questioning. "Is this substance controlled on your world?" she asked. Nathaniel leaned back in the chair, exhaling slowly. "You mean, is it illegal?" "No. You can buy it at any gas station." "You extract it from a plant?" "Yeah," Nathaniel said. "Coffea arabica. Grows in high altitudes. I've got a few boxes of beans in cold storage." "Want to see?" Viral hesitated. "You carry raw agricultural product aboard a diplomatic vessel?" Nathaniel shrugged. "You think this is strong? You should try Turkish double roast. Or Vietnamese civet." "Civet," Viral repeated. He waved it off. "Long story. Not important." Over the next week, a small but growing number of crew began making excuses to visit Nathaniel during his morning routine. The humans had a word for it: coffee culture. It started as curiosity, then fascination. Then things got weird. On the 7th day, technician Ralvik, a cautious Yelvani known for his aversion to risk, requested a microdose under controlled conditions. Nathaniel obliged, brewing a small pour-over using a hand grinder, a collapsible filter cone, and water from the ship's purifier. Ralvik's pupils dilated 15%. He reported an immediate sensation of clarity and described an intense urge to reorganize the ship's archival database by efficiency of access. He completed the task in under 3 hours, a job usually assigned to 3 technicians over 2 days. The next day, 2 more crew members requested doses. Then 5. Then 9. The ship's captain, Ulrich, summoned Nathaniel to the command deck. "I have received 19 formal requests from my crew to obtain controlled access to your beverage," Ulrich said. "Explain." "They're just curious," Nathaniel said, sipping from his thermos. "It's harmless in small amounts." "Probably. Your culture developed this for what purpose?" "Survival," Nathaniel said. "Back home, we work long hours, raise kids, fix broken plumbing, survive economic crashes, and try not to scream into the void. Coffee helps." Ulrich stared at him for a long time. "You ingest a psychostimulant to function under duress?" Nathaniel nodded. "Every morning since I was 17. The captain turned away, muttering low in his native tongue. By week 3, the crew had constructed a makeshift brew station just off Deck 12, complete with mugs, kettles, and a shared schedule. Nathaniel oversaw the process. No one was allowed more than 1 serving per day. The Kellerans regulated their intake meticulously, but the Yelvani, with their heightened neuroplasticity, quickly developed a tolerance. Then came the incident. Assistant Engineer Harvin, a young Yelvani with poor impulse control, snuck 2 cups of Nathaniel's blend while on maintenance shift. Within an hour, he bypassed the safety protocols on the fusion core, attempting to optimize containment flow. The adjustments destabilized the power grid. Emergency lockdown followed. Harvin was found muttering equations under his breath, eyes unfocused, twitching slightly. Nathaniel was hauled before the council. "We permitted this experiment under the presumption of safety," Efrix said. "Your beverage has destabilized our ship." Nathaniel held up his hands. "I warned them. I said no more than 1 cup. You are not a physician." "No," Nathaniel agreed. "But I've lived through 2 dissertations, 3 failed startups, and a divorce. I know what too much coffee looks like." Dr. Viral suggested the beverage be classified as a restricted neuroenhancer. The captain agreed. A formal ban was issued. Nathaniel's brewing equipment was confiscated, his bean supply locked in cold storage behind a biometric access panel. And for a while, that was the end of it. Until the council summit. Delegates from 12 systems gathered in Earth orbit to finalize the Interstellar Trade Charter. Nathaniel was scheduled to present a botanical feasibility report. But with his coffee stash locked away, he overslept, missed the prep window, and stumbled into the summit bleary-eyed, clutching a lukewarm cup of synthesizer tea. He lasted 7 minutes before accidentally projecting the wrong slide. A stock photo of a goat standing on a cliff. "This is your agricultural model?" asked Chairperson Valek. Nathaniel blinked. "No. Sorry. That's from a different file." "Why is the animal elevated?" "Because legend has it goats discovered coffee," Nathaniel muttered. "They ate the berries and started jumping around. Some monk noticed and brewed the first cup." Valek stared. "That is not in your report." "Yeah," Nathaniel admitted. "It's mostly anecdotal." Efrix stood, requesting a recess. The summit broke for 20 minutes. Nathaniel collapsed in his quarters. He hadn't slept properly in 2 nights. Without his usual brew, his thoughts felt like fog trapped in molasses. An hour later, Efrix visited him. "I have reviewed the incident logs," Efrix said, "and examined the neural activity charts." Nathaniel rubbed his eyes. "Am I being reassigned?" "No. You are being reinstated as brewmaster." Nathaniel sat up. "Seriously?" Efrix held up a small, sealed package. "2 delegates from the Troskery sector consumed your beverage during a prior visit. They have petitioned to include Earth coffee as a regulated stimulant under the trade charter." Nathaniel blinked. "You want me to make coffee for the summit?" Efrix nodded. "Under supervision." Within the hour, Nathaniel was back on Deck 12, grinding beans with rhythmic precision, boiling water to exact temperatures, and timing his pour with a scientist's grace. Delegates lined up with cups in hand. The summit resumed. This time, Nathaniel's presentation ran flawlessly. The goat slide stayed hidden. The Troskery delegate proposed a trade agreement for Earth's coffee in exchange for crystalline growth accelerants. The Nolakri offered terraforming tech in return for bean cultivation rights. Even the Kellerans, long resistant to neural modifiers, agreed to a controlled import program. By the end of the summit, Earth's coffee was signed into the Interstellar Charter as Class 3 neurostimulant, with strict regulations and dosage protocols. Nathaniel leaned back in his chair, mug in hand, and exhaled. Efrix approached. "You have altered the course of interstellar commerce." Nathaniel raised his mug. "All in a day's brew." Efrix tilted his head. "Your kind continues to perplex me." Nathaniel smiled. "Wait until you try espresso." The request came at 3rd shift, when most of the Viridian Light ran on dimmed corridors and half-staffed stations. Nathaniel was rehydrating freeze-dried noodles in the crew galley when the door slid open and 2 Troskery stepped in with the kind of synchronized efficiency that made him pause mid-stir. "Ambassador Boone," said the taller one, pupils adjusting in a ripple pattern as he scanned the room. "You are awake." "Barely," Nathaniel muttered, eyeing the timer on the wall. "If this is about the trade clause, I've already submitted the soil viability data." "We are not here for soil," said the shorter Troskery, his voice carrying a melodic undertone. "We request a demonstration." Nathaniel blinked. What now? A consumption ritual, said the first, gesturing to the thermos beside Nathaniel's tray. You are the only verified practitioner aboard. Nathaniel looked down at the battered container. This isn't a ritual. It's just coffee. In our culture, said the shorter one, repetition with intention is ritual. Nathaniel pinched the bridge of his nose. I'm not even supposed to be brewing after curfew. We have diplomatic clearance, said the taller one, producing a data baton with a blinking authorization glyph. Of course you do. He sighed, stood, and crossed to the galley's utility counter, where a compact grinder and a single-serve dripper were stashed behind a bag of emergency rations. You brought your own equipment, said the taller Troskary, tilting his head. Captain said I was allowed to keep one setup for personal use. I think it was supposed to be a punishment. The shorter one leaned forward, nostrils flaring. What variety is that? Nathaniel held up the bag. Ethiopian heirloom. Natural process. Bright, fruity, a little wild. The taller Troskary's pupils expanded. Wild implies instability. Only in the best way, Nathaniel said, measuring out the beans. The grinder's burr's word. The aroma bloomed quickly, sharp and citrusy. The two aliens stiffened slightly, their facial plates shifting in subtle tension. I thought you'd be used to it by now, Nathaniel said. The olfactory receptors still struggle to categorize, said the shorter one. It registers as both nutrient and hazard. Well, that tracks. He poured the grounds into the filter and slowly added hot water in a spiral motion. The Troskary watched in silence, their gaze fixed like biologists observing a new predator. When the last drop hit the cup, Nathaniel handed it over. The taller one accepted it reverently, sniffed once, then took a cautious sip. He blinked. Once. Then again. The shorter one leaned in. What do you perceive? The taller one stared into the cup. My sense of probability has widened. Nathaniel raised an eyebrow. You mean your imagination? I see variables, the Troskary said slowly. Temporal forks. Branches of logic I had not considered. That's caffeine, Nathaniel said. Welcome to the human condition. The shorter one reached for the remaining brew, took a sip, and immediately gripped the counter. Your circulatory system, he said through clenched mandibles. It tolerates this? Tolerates isn't the word I'd use, Nathaniel said, pouring hot water over a second batch. It adapts. Our livers metabolize methylxanthines, our adrenal systems compensate, and our vascular tone adjusts. Takes a few weeks to build tolerance. The taller one looked up sharply. Weeks. Nathaniel nodded. You probably shouldn't have more than half a cup. The shorter Troskary's pupil shrank. I already consumed the remainder. Well, Nathaniel said, you might want to sit down. They did. 10 minutes passed in silence, broken only by the sound of the galley's refrigeration unit humming to life. Then the shorter Troskary stood suddenly, walked to the wall, and began rearranging the magnetic chart of ship responsibilities. Nathaniel watched. What are you doing? Optimizing crew rotation. You're not on our staffing board. I am now. The taller one stood as well, eyes darting. We must submit a proposal to the council. Immediate integration of this compound into Troskary tactical training regiments. Nathaniel held up a finger. You're going to want to think that through. But they were already out the door. By the next sleep cycle, word had spread again. This time, it wasn't just about the taste, it was about performance. The Troskary filed a request to study the effects of Nathaniel's brew on decision-making speed and strategic foresight. The Yelvani, not to be outdone, countered with a proposal of their own, a comparative trial using simulated crisis scenarios. And somehow, despite not being on any formal roster, Nathaniel was appointed lead facilitator. The trials began in the simulation bay 72 hours later. He stood behind the observation glass, arms crossed, watching two Troskary on one side of the room and a trio of Yelvani on the other. Each group had been given equal parameters, a failing life support module, dwindling oxygen, and a malfunctioning AI assistant. The Troskary had consumed a diluted version of the coffee blend. The Yelvani had opted for a cold brew variant Nathaniel had made by accident 2 days prior while sleep-deprived. I still think you're all reading too much into this, he said to Efrix, who stood beside him with a data slate. They have each improved their scenario response time by over 40%, Efrix said. Your compound has altered their cognitive patterns. It's not a compound, Nathaniel muttered. It's a drink. You are evading the implications. The simulation played out. The Elvani rerouted power within 3 minutes, vented the failing module, and negotiated with the AI to perform a hard reboot. The Troskari, meanwhile, had disassembled the AI core and were in the process of rebuilding it from scratch. Efrix frowned. That is not part of the scenario. They're improvising, Nathaniel said. Humans do that too. It's what happens when the brain's firing on all cylinders. Efrix's crest dimmed. It concerns me how casually you say this. Later that cycle, Dr. Viral summoned him for a full physiological workup. Sit, she said without looking up from her console. Remove your jacket. Nathaniel complied. Something wrong. You're the only long-term user of this substance aboard. We are analyzing long-term impacts. She attached a monitor to his wrist, then another to his temple. Heart rate steady, she murmured. No arrhythmia. Pupil response normal. Adrenal levels elevated. Should be. I had a double shot this morning. She glanced up. Why? 2 meetings. One with the delegation from the Ography, who speak exclusively in tonal pulses. My translator glitched halfway through, and I had to guess based on pitch. Viral closed her eyes briefly. You continue to use this compound even under stress. It's not despite stress, he said. It's because of it. Humans don't operate in a vacuum. We adapt to pressure. Sometimes we need help. She tapped the console. Your dopamine levels are inconsistent. Cortisol is elevated beyond baseline. I've had worse after watching election returns. She stared at him. He sighed. Look, it's not a miracle brew. It's a tool. Like a wrench. Or duct tape. You use it to keep yourself functioning until you can figure out what's wrong. Viral folded her arms. And when you never stop needing it. Nathaniel looked at the floor. Then you're probably doing something wrong. She was silent for a moment, then disconnected the monitors. You are cleared for continued use. Under remote supervision. Appreciated. As he left the medbay, Efrix intercepted him in the corridor. Council will convene tomorrow. There is a motion to establish a permanent Earth stimulant research office. Nathaniel stopped walking. You're kidding. Efrix's crest pulsed faintly. I do not possess that function. He paused, then added, they want you to chair it. Nathaniel stared. I'm a botanist. You are now a diplomat, a case study, and a stimulant technician. Great. Just what my resume needed. Efrix tilted his head. Do you accept? Nathaniel exhaled slowly. Only if I get a chair with lumbar support. Efrix nodded once and walked away. Alone, Nathaniel looked down the corridor, then back toward the galley. He wondered how much he had left in the bag. The first thing Nathaniel noticed when he entered the chamber was the smell. Not the sharp, citrusy tang of freshly ground beans or the familiar bitterness of a late brew. This was something else, sanitized, metallic, a scent that clung to the back of the tongue. The kind of smell that made him think of hospitals and over-polished instruments. The testing room had been converted from one of the Viridian Light's auxiliary hydroponics-based plumbing, airflow, and isolation already in place. Everything else had been stripped out, replaced with observation domes, biometric monitoring arms, and a central station crowned by a thick glass brewing capsule. It looked like a cross between a chemistry lab and a confession booth. Inside, seated on a padded chair, was the Troskari named Joan. Nathaniel rolled up his sleeves and stepped past the sealed threshold. The door hissed shut behind him. Joan didn't move. His gaze was fixed on the capsule's drip nozzle, pupils slowly shifting in tight concentric circles. You sure about this? Nathaniel asked, checking the calibration. Yes, Joan said without shifting. The dosage has been pre-approved. What you're asking for isn't just a taste anymore. This is a full brew. Medium roast, full volume, no dilution. I am aware. Nathaniel turned the temperature dial up by 3 degrees. You're going to feel things. Fast. Could be elevated anxiety, a rush of focus, maybe a sudden need to reorganize your entire wardrobe by frequency of use. I no longer wear garments. Well then, metaphors may not help. Joan finally looked at him. I have experienced the simulation. I am prepared. Nathaniel took a breath, locked the chamber, and triggered the brew cycle. A soft hum filled the pod, followed by a rhythmic bubbling as water passed through the grounds. The scent changed almost instantly, richer now, deeper, carrying the unmistakable weight of a full extraction. He poured the liquid into a thermally stabilized vessel and handed it over. Joan held it without drinking. I have read that humans often pause before the first sip. You read that, huh? It is described as a moment of ritual acknowledgement. Nathaniel leaned against the counter. Or we just wait for it to cool down enough not to burn our tongues. Jones sipped. For the next 23 seconds, neither of them spoke. Then Jones exhaled, his mandibles trembling slightly. It is vivid. What are you feeling? There is a flood of divergent pathways, Jones said. My memory indexing has accelerated. I can cross-reference linguistic variants from 3 dialect clusters simultaneously. I also feel compelled to recalibrate the ship's gravity dampeners. Nathaniel frowned. That's a little specific. I believe the current resonance is inefficient. Don't. You're not authorized to touch the dampeners. I am merely observing flaws. Good. Keep it theoretical. Joan took another sip, slower this time. Your species willingly endures this level of cerebral turbulence. We don't think of it as turbulence. More like propulsion. Gets things moving when inertia sets in. Joan's pupils dilated. I understand now why your kind has survived such chaotic environmental conditions. You do not merely endure instability. You harness it. Nathaniel folded his arms. You're not the first to figure that out, but you might be the first to say it out loud. The monitor attached to Joan's wrist blinked green, then yellow, then green again. Nathaniel leaned over to check the readings. Heart rate's up, but within safe bounds. Cortisol spike moderate. Neural activity. Yeah, you're running hot but sustainable. Jones set the cup down carefully. I wish to request a second serving. Nope. Why? Because you don't build tolerance by throwing yourself into the deep end. 1 cup, then rest. You're still metabolizing this. Jones' shoulders sagged slightly, though his posture remained alert. Understood. Nathaniel moved to the console and logged the session. You'll level out in about an hour. You might get a crash later. Drink water. Don't operate any ship systems. Try not to rewrite any navigation protocols. Jones stood. I feel altered. You are. Temporarily. Does the effect fade? Eventually. But the memory of it doesn't. First time stays with you. Joan extended one hand. You have my respect. And my condolences. For what? That such clarity must be chased daily. Nathaniel didn't answer. He watched Joan exit the chamber, steady but with a new tightness to his movements, like a mind whose thoughts had all arrived at once and were now jostling for airtime. 2 hours later, Nathaniel was summoned to the council review. The chamber was warm, always a touch too warm for his liking, and the seats were arranged in their usual arc. Efrix sat in the central position, flanked by Viral and chairperson Volek. A projection cube hovered above the dais, slowly rotating to display biometric graphs, neural overlays, and a playback of Jones' session. We have reviewed the trial, Efrix began. The effects were as predicted. Elevated cognitive function, increased pattern recognition, and short-term hyperfocus. No adverse reactions? Nathaniel asked. None beyond expected metabolic strain. Viral tapped a sequence into her tablet. We are currently considering limited distribution trials under controlled supervision. However, there remains concern. About addiction? Nathaniel guessed. No. About dependency. Volek leaned forward. Your species consumes this brew to override biological fatigue. That is not resilience. It is circumvention. You're not wrong, Nathaniel said. But you're not entirely right either. Humans don't drink coffee to avoid limits. We drink it to stretch them. A little more time, a little more clarity. It doesn't replace sleep, or food, or sanity. It just helps. Like a crutch helps a sprained ankle. You don't run on it forever, but it gets you moving until you can heal. Efrix's crest shifted faintly. And yet, many never stop. That's our problem, Nathaniel said. But it's also our strength. We find tools. We refine them. And yeah, sometimes we lean too hard. But without that drive, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't have made it off our own rock. There was a long silence. Volek finally spoke. The proposal to ban further trials has been withdrawn. Viral added. We will establish a joint oversight committee. You will advise. Nathaniel exhaled. You sure? Your species has contributed a unique resource, Efrix said. It is our duty to understand it. As the meeting ended, Efrix followed Nathaniel into the corridor. You are difficult to categorize, he said. I get that a lot. You reframe obstacles as tools. Only when I'm awake enough to see them. Efrix paused. You will have access to a dedicated brew station. Within limits. Nathaniel smiled. Thanks. I'll make sure no one tries to integrate coffee into the life support system. That already happened. I'll have a talk with the Yelvani. He wandered back to the galley, where his equipment had been returned to its original place, now labeled with a multilingual caution plaque and a biometric lock. He started a new batch, slower this time. No audience, no experiment, just a quiet moment. The brew hissed. The aroma bloomed. He poured a cup and took a sip. It wasn't about alertness now, or productivity, or proving a point. It was about grounding. He looked out the viewport, Earth a pale sphere in the distance. A whole galaxy of species, each with their quirks, their strengths, their rituals. And somehow, humanity's strange little habit had made its mark. Nathaniel took another sip and whispered, "Not bad for a being."